guys, what's up? My name is Riley, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the worst mistakes that I've made as a CNA. I've been a CNA for a little over a year now, but I feel like I've gone through a lot. Within this past year, I've worked at about 3 different facilities, and I'm always learning. I'm always trying to be a better person. I'm always trying to be a better CNA and then eventually a good nurse. So ultimately, I'm just trying to take what I learned from my job right now and apply it to nursing eventually. And so I hope that what I tell you guys today, I hope that you can learn from it too. That way maybe you don't make the same mistakes, and I hope you guys enjoy. So I would say the first mistake I made was not speaking up about an unsafe discharge. I originally worked up on a medical surgical floor, where there's always people coming in and out so often, and you see so many different types of people and conditions. You see everything, really. There was one patient who had syncope every time he sat up, and I don't believe it was orthostatic. It was something wrong with his brain, and the doctors couldn't figure out why. So they sent him home, and me and my nurse at the time, we were trying to discharge him, and he was having syncopal episodes as he was discharging, and we both felt wrong. We both felt so wrong, but we just kind of let it happen. And it felt awful. I felt awful taking him down to the front entrance so he could leave and go back home and somehow get out of his car, with his wife who's elderly. And it was a really awful situation. And I knew when he was discharging I should have spoke up about it. However, he came back, believe it or not, for the same issue. He ended up getting onto palliative care and passing away. It was really heartbreaking to see him decline so much in between his previous discharge and then when I saw him at my shift next. I think he passed away within like an hour. If he passed away that soon, then it was probably good he was put on palliative care. It's still not easy, because I don't know if him going home was the reason why he ended up passing away so quickly. I definitely know in the future now, if I ever have someone who I don't feel like is right, I'm going to speak up about it. I'm going to say something because it shouldn't happen. We should be sending home our patients, feeling confident, knowing that they're gonna be going home to a safe environment. That's what therapy is all about. That's what, case management does. And it's also part of our job. We need to make sure that they're going home to a safe environment and that they have all the tools they need. And if they're not able to even get out of their car, don't send them home. I don't understand how that mistake was made from the doctor either. I feel like everyone is to blame for that situation, but it's still very sad to see. The second mistake that I've made is leaving a fall risk patient by himself in the bathroom. I feel like every aide has probably done this at some point, just because, especially when you're new, you kind of have a sense of trusting everyone. You should be trusting nobody. So what happened was, it was not my patient, so I didn't really know anything about him, and he had called to use the bathroom, so I walked him to the bathroom. He seemed very stable, so I figured, well, I'll just leave him in there. And I closed the door a little too early. He was still standing and he hadn't even sat on the toilet, which is also a big no-no. So then, I tell him, go do your business. And then I walk out, and then 3 seconds later, BAM! His head hit the wall so hard. And immediately, me and another nurse ran back into the room, and we were like, whoa, there's a pool of blood. This man hit his head super hard, and everything ended up being okay, but it was just so awful. It did not have to be a situation. If I had just stayed with him, everything would have been fine. And I have learned now that I will stay with every patient in the bathroom. Even if I know someone has fallen in the room next to me, I will not leave my high-risk fall patient in the bathroom by themselves. I will yell for help for someone to get that other fool. Moral of the story, I guess it should be common knowledge, but in case you don't know, if you're becoming a CNA, do not leave your patients by themselves if they are a high fall risk. I'm not saying be a 1-to-1, but if they are up and about, don't leave them. There's a reason why they were classified as a high fall risk. It's because they fall a lot or is more likely to fall. So That's my piece on that. And the third mistake that I've made is ignoring all the warning signs for a job. So I was not happy at my job working in med-surg because I felt like the pay was not equal to the amount of work I was putting in, and it wasn't really fair. So what I did was I started looking around for a new job. I wanted more money. I got greedy, okay? And I found a job that was willing to pay me $23 an hour when I was making $19.50. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to take that job right now. And keep in mind, it was a long-term facility care, which also had like a rehab unit. And also, I did the research on it beforehand. I have always been huge on maintaining good quality of care, and I saw that that facility just did not do that beforehand. I looked at Medicare.gov and I looked at like their reviews, and there had been the red hand, which if you don't know means that there's been some sort of neglect or abuse happening at that facility, which is awful. And I took the job, so I started working there, and I didn't really ask many questions beforehand either. I was a very new and inexperienced CNA. You know, I've thought that all facilities, I thought it was kind of mandated for it to be a 1:8 CNA ratio. However, I was sorely mistaken, because there were many times where I would have to deal with at least 30 patients by myself. There was one point where I had probably 60 patients all by myself. And the nurses, they wouldn't help. You know, they had their own roster of patients to deal with. They had probably more than I did, just in terms of giving out medication. And I was just severely overworked. And it was a very common theme. Everybody at that facility hated working there. However, they weren't willing to leave because of the pay. And everybody was burnt out. Everybody was tired. And there just wasn't enough staff for how needy each patient was. There was a hall at that facility. 8 out of 9 of them required a Hoyer lift. As you might know, Hoyer lifts require 2 people. And there was only 1 person to assist those 8 people. Like, after every meal, you would be running your butt off. You would be running, literally, because there is just not enough people. There's not enough time in the day. And then they'd expect you to get charting done. And it's like, you have to stay for an extra 30 minutes after. There was times where I was sitting there charting for so long that the program kicked me off. It said, no more charting. This is past your shift. So yeah, do not ignore the warning signs of a place. If you hear bad things about it, it's probably best just to stay away. Go for somewhere where you know is good. Be willing to take the pay cut. Sometimes pay is not everything. And I can't even tell you how many times I would go home and cry because I felt so awful that I couldn't take care of everyone the way that I wanted to. I literally would sob at my lunch breaks. I would sob the second I had any free time because those people did not deserve the way they're being treated. And it broke my heart every time they would say something like, "Are you really leaving? Can you please stay? Oh, that CNA, she's so mean to me." That is awful. I think about those residents every single day. And I really pray that that facility gets shut down, honestly, because those people do not deserve the treatment that they are getting and the neglect that they're going through. But basically, you know, just to wrap everything up in a pretty little bow, you know, just be willing to speak up about things. Be willing to ask questions. Communicate with your nurses, with your co-workers, communicate with your boss, everybody. And it will save you a lot of heartache. If you guys like this video, let me know in the comments down below. Give it a like, comment, subscribe, whatever you feel like doing, whatever you're inclined. I'm not picky. And if you want to see more, tell me about any topics that you're interested in, and I can